Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's #1 industrial automation product and technology show. Thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Thank you for being a member of our audience, and thank you for tuning back in this week. Now, for those new to the show, my name is Shawn of Insights in Automation, and each week I invite a vendor on the show to tell us about their products and technologies. And during their presentation, I play the role of the audience, asking questions I think you guys may have and questions I have as well. Now, given that a quarter of our audience listens to the show and doesn't watch it, I'll try to call attention to any details and the visuals that I think you guys may want to know about. So with that said, let me jump into our sponsor's message, and I'm actually sponsoring this myself. So if you know anybody who needs PLC, HMI, or SCADA training, please tell them about theautomationschool.com. If you're one of my students in an Allen Bradley PLC or PAC course, you're going to notice I just added some new lessons to every PLC course. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to update all the students on what is, as of late 2024, the pricing of the paid software, what's available for free trials. I wanted to let you know about some of the simulation packages we're using here in-house that I really think you guys will like, including our own free PLC simulator, which I paid somebody to make and I now give away free to my students, as well as Factory I/O and Logic Designs PLC Logic. So check out lesson 102, and I'm about to drop update to lesson 105, 106, and 107. So if you're a student, check those out. Just trying to give you guys more options to save money, because not everybody can go out and spend 10 grand on software and hardware to learn PLCs or PACs. So everything from our free option, the PLC application simulator, to the lower cost options of Factory I/O and PLC Logics. I think you guys will like those. And of course, we sell those two packages at theautomationschool.com. Now, with that said, I want to welcome Thomas to the show. I reached out to him earlier in the week, and he's like, yeah, let's get on the show, because I saw this launch of Anybus Defender, and it looked like a really cool suite of new products. And so, Thomas, I first want to thank you for getting back to me so quickly and being willing to jump right on. But as this is your first time on our show, could you, before you jump into your presentation, could you take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shawn, for having me. It's really a pleasure. So my name is Thomas Vasen, and I am Business Development Manager for Network Security at Anybus. Anybus is a part of HMS Networks, responsible for this new product line. I've been with the company about 2 years, focusing only on network security. So this is my bread and butter, so to say. My background is, of course, cyber security as well, primarily in energy sector, in military sector, telecom sector, and a bit in IT as well, obviously. Before that, I'm really a telecom buff. I've spent 20 years both in operations and working for vendors with advanced telecom solutions like DPI and signaling monitoring and those type of things. And I think telecom gives me a really interesting perspective coming into manufacturing, because in telecom, of course, there's nothing more important than uptime. It's got to always work, right? It used to be you pick up the phone, you got to have a dial tone. And at the same time, no data can get lost either, because every second needs to be charged for. So it's really, important to count all the bits. And lastly, if I call you, Shawn, you wanna be able to trust the caller ID, that it's really me calling it. So the integrity is also important, and that mix of things, it plays well towards manufacturing, where of course uptime is the most important as well. So I'm very grateful for that background, and I think we have a lot to contribute towards this space with regards to security.
Yeah, I think
So
a
with,
lot of us. Yeah, and I
go
think a
ahead.
lot of us know Anybus from their great gateway devices, but we're becoming a more and more connected world. There are some cases where our plants need to be connected over a wide area network that goes through a telecom company. Excuse
That
me. So I think that's a great background, and I'm glad to see that Anybus is getting into this business, because it's a trusted name, right? HMS, Anybus. So it's a trusted name. So it's great to see them to jumping in with both feet. And I think and I know we're going to talk about Anybus Defender here in your presentation. So let me just turn it right back to you and let you go on with introducing us to this product.
Fantastic. Thank you.
But before we get into that, I wanted to thank those of you who signed up in our new membership program either on YouTube or at theautomationblog.com. In appreciation of your support, you get exclusive access to the videos of episodes that are not sponsored by the vendor. Now, to learn more about our membership program, which is only $10 a month, please visit theautomationblog.com/memberships. And with that, let's go ahead and jump back into this week's episode.
So let's start. We are very, very excited, of course, that just 10 days ago or so, we announced the immediate availability of a range of new, what I call industrial security appliances, the Anybus Defenders. And these products are really specifically engineered for OT environments. OT, of course, standing for operational technology. I don't have to pitch that here, but it is distinct different from IT being information technology. And they are ideal to add sort of segmentation inside industrial networks. And for some, this might be obvious that we do this for years, but the majority of people have not really done this yet, is what we found. So there's too many flat networks out there, and they need this type of products in order to reduce the risk for threats to do any impact, but also reduce the impact if a breach does occur. In addition, they can satisfy a range of other security use cases as well. So before we dive into the products and the features, let's talk a little bit more about why this is needed, right? And manufacturing and critical infrastructures, as we see it, they are really under attack. On a daily basis, you can find news articles like this one, right? It's about battery maker Varta, Duracell competitor, attacked by hackers, probably with ransomware, right? The IT systems are often compromised first, but in many cases, the threats do drip through into OT. In fact, 1 out of 4 of the ransomware cases in manufacturing have resulted in downtime on the operational shop floor already. And if it's not the case, then very often the operations team feels insecure about continuing production. And like in this example, the production plants are shut down proactively. So operational managers really need to find a way to feel more secure about the cyber posture of their plants. And while being more and more dependent on IT at the same time, they also need to be more isolated and protected to ensure their business continuity. So a strategy with good segmentation and copying critical systems into demilitarized zones, it's really the only path forward. And this will really minimize the impact of breach, and it reduces the risk of any threats disrupting uptime. So generally, manufacturing have not taken security serious enough in their digitization journey. The World Economic Forum echoed this in their report last year. It's based upon data from IBM and Deloitte, of course. The manufacturing is now the most targeted sector for cyber attacks. They have taken over the crown from the financial sector. And this is really due to the rapid digitization, transformation, improving both efficiency and sustainability, and also enabling, of course, Industry 4.0, more customized products. But it comes at a big cost. Manufacturing generally has a very high willingness to pay due to the high impact of downtime. And this makes them, of course, a very attractive target. And on top of that, it's important to understand that threats are real and have real impact in OT, right? Specifically when they enter into the OT space. Gartner highlighted already last year or even earlier that we will soon see the first human casualties because of incidents in OT. Malware is adapting more towards OT, though maybe not as fast as many might predict. It is happening, and a lot of IT threats are making impact in OT without being so specific as well. The consequence is that cybersecurity vulnerabilities really become safety risks. So implementing cybersecurity control frameworks is therefore really a necessity, especially in OT. At the same time, change is also driven by regulations. In the NIS2 directive, that is in Europe, taking effect this October, They are demanding proactive action from executive teams. And manufacturing is specifically marked as a sector, which is a critical sector. That means that they have to apply cybersecurity strategies and implement measures. In the United States, you have executive orders that are similarly bringing the urgent need for cyber protection to the attention of the asset owners. It's a different strategy. In the NIS2, it's more like, do this or I'll fine you. And in the US, it's more, you should do this and we can help you. We'll see what turns out best. There are also great frameworks like 62443 that drive change and ensure a much more hardened infrastructure. But they are still most often optional. The asset owners must be mature enough to have a strategy to adopt them, and they will take tons of time to be implemented. So more and more often we see insurance companies mandating this. So, there is another push to change this, but of course it's slow. We feel that it's taken a lot of time. It's taken too much time, too little action is taken. Largely because the asset owners are a bit confused about what they need to do and how to prioritize. They really need help. And the reality is that it's really all backwards, right? Security should have been embedded in a network, but it's not. The operational OT networks are completely open and unprotected. Now it's time to reassess the situation and the risks and put security in place.
I want to jump in for a second, Thomas.
Go ahead.
I want to jump in for a second. When we had ISA on to talk about 62443 a couple times, one quote I remember them saying was, and I think this was Eric Kosman, the ultimate responsibility lies with the asset owner because at the end of the day, it's their equipment, it's their company, and they need to protect it or else they lose. So we've had a number of large companies in the U.S. get cyber hacks and cyber ransoms, right? And so who has to pay that? It's not the guy who's running IT. It's not the guy running OT. It's the owner of the company, the shareholders, if it's publicly traded. So it really is. I mean, a company can't be put out of business by this. And, they have to take notice of what's happening. That's why in the news we cover all the articles we can find about NIS2. Even though that's happening in Europe, we can learn a lot about that here in the U.S. And there's a lot of best practices. And we've had other people on, actually people who are part of your company, talk about the importance of 62443 and zones and conduits and firewalls and DMZs. And the bottom line I want to get across to the audience is, you guys heard me say this 100 times. Only connect securely to your network. Don't connect unsecured to IT. Don't connect unsecured to the internet. If you think there are not, hundreds of thousands of computers out there probing every single port on every single IP address you own on the internet, you're wrong. It's happening all the time. Even if you just put your personal computer on there, take your cable modem out and plug directly in, take your router out and plug directly into your cable modem, your computer will be hacked within 24 hours. So Absolutely. Don't do that. Don't do that. I went through that in the early 2000s. Don't do it. But anyways, let me turn it back to you, Thomas.
Thank you. Totally right. And security is complex. It's terrible, but especially in industrial networks, you have to be very thoughtful. The market is flooded with solutions. It's really incredibly fragmented. And unfortunately, this has resulted into many, potential companies, asset owners, as you say, that are in need to rather wait than take action because it's too confusing for them. They don't know what to do to really increase their cyber posture. At the same time, we have to acknowledge that OT security does not come in a one product solution, right? It's not that simple. It's a mix between people, process, product, and the right partners, right? Four Ps, I like to call them. And it's also in a space where IT and OT minds need to meet with totally different priorities. IT focusing foremost on confidentiality, keeping the business safe, worrying about data loss, etc., and protecting the company's intellectual property. And OT prioritizing availability, after, of course, safety. And this causes for confusion and friction. Who owns the budget? Who makes the decisions for what, right? Who owns the responsibility to run this? So keeping these things in mind and keeping things manageable helps with this simplified overview of the 4 key elements of a sound OT security strategy, according to me. Number 1, you must know what you have. Everybody's heard that before. And it's easier said than done. It can be done manually, probably easier to do with some discovery and network mapping tools, right? They're essential. So you understand what's there, who talks to who, what are the paths into your network.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to jump in here and pay some bills. Thank you, first of all, for listening to this episode. And while today's vendor wasn't able to sponsor this episode, I still wanted to invest the time to bring it to you because I think you're like me. You like to learn about new products and technologies. So with all that said, I'd like to ask you to consider becoming a member for just $10 a month, either on YouTube or at theautomationblog.com. to help me offset the cost of producing these episodes each week. In exchange for your membership, you will receive member-only perks and ad-free editions of every unsponsored episode of this show. With that said, thanks again for tuning in this week, and now we'll return you to this week's episode.
Number 2, driven by regulations like NIS2 in Europe, very much so, it is required to report if you have a breach, and you need to do that within 24 hours. It's really quite harsh requirements on that. And this is, of course, for the government entity to get a quick picture on how large this threat impact is on society as a whole. So they want to have this information, and therefore you probably need something that monitors your network to see if you are breached or not, right? It's one is needed for the other. So therefore, there's a big push for this type of detection solutions and other type of relevant monitoring. You can't stay ignorant anymore. However, solutions in this area do not directly help you protect uptime at all. They will tell you when something happened after it occurred. And the tools will generate many, many false positives that need people to do assessments on. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a jungle and very much a consultant-driven area. To defend actual uptime, it's far more important to focus on protection, right? To reduce the impact of an incident and reduce the risk of threats coming in. And as an operational leader, you must assume that a breach will happen to you. It's only a matter of time. Therefore, it's also very important to have a sound backup and recovery strategy. So think also about your PLC configurations, your Windows-based HMIs, etc., etc. They are very often not included in regular IT backup routines, right? So have that plan ready, and NIS2 covers that type of requirements as well. Make sure that you know what to do when everything breaks down and you need to build from scratch. What are your procedures? But with the Anybus Defender launch, we will focus right now on protection, reduce impact and reduce the risk of something happening. And there are other drivers for change, mainly, changes that have happened in the evolution of automation networks. So traditionally, industrial networks are built in an isolated air gap manner. Many still believe that whatever they have is air gapped as well. Using different technologies like serial buses, like Profibus or DeviceNet or something like that, and it was harder for anyone to do any harm. Hackers could maybe still hack the PLC, but disrupting the process would require quite significant knowledge. It was not, this was done with Stuxnet many, many years ago, but other examples are quite rare. We have to be honest about that. But as we know from our HMS annual industrial protocols report, networks are evolving more and more to standard Ethernet technology, and with IP as an underlying transport protocol. To stay air-gapped, however, many have designed networks using multiple interfaces on a PLC, and with that requiring any traffic to sort of bridge this PLC. And as the PLC is not a router, this kind of mimics a serial bus type of architecture. So it gives a false sense of security, I like to say. Other Ethernet units could physically connect to the industrial network, of course, quite easily. And as it's IP, it will just flow any other type of traffic on that network. And that is already increasing the threat surface. But typical physical access would be required, of course. But very important to understand is that this type of architecture blocks innovation. To have an effective digitization journey, you must have other tools and give them access to the network to read out data from the assets directly. So you have your PLC doing one job and you have other tools doing other jobs on the same network. And therefore the networks are changing and opening up. The PLC is just one node on the network. It's not a gatekeeper at all anymore. And other tools have gain direct access. So exposing the infrastructure like this enables easier digitization. This is what happened everywhere, and some people are not even aware of it, that it's connected like this. But it really significantly increases the threat exposure and the risk for downtime. Malicious actors now have direct access, from IT infrastructure or from the supervising network or whatever. You had a question, Shawn. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to throw in this too, that a lot of you out there listening, you may be saying, well, how they're going to get on my PLC network? I have a router and in between, and then you're also adding all these Wi-Fi devices and Bluetooth devices to your VFDs and your HMIs, and if somebody hacks your phone at a donut shop, right? Or because you plugged into a power connector on a plane at the airport, they can actually jump across your Wi-Fi or your Bluetooth without you knowing it and get access to these devices in that you think are protected on, the OT side. So just be aware of that. Anytime you add any network connectivity, and who doesn't walk around with their phone? I know some places don't allow it, but most of us are going everywhere with our phone these days or our laptops, and if that gets hacked, then it can jump that firewall easily. So something to be concerned about. This is some major cyber hacks have happened like that in the last few years. So I just wanted to bring that up because I'm seeing all these devices down below the PLC, and I'm like, people are adding all kinds of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to these things, and our phones can get easily hacked and then jump to those. So in any case, that's what I wanted to say. Let me turn it back to you, Thomas.
Yeah, you're totally right. And, unifying network technologies like this has really enabled easier digitization, and that's good. Nobody wants to stop that. But it also increases the threat exposure and the risk for downtime. So we have to think differently about how to reduce that risk. So the solution looks something like this. Extremely simplified, of course. Let me describe it. Of course, you need a firewall between the office and the internet, right? Protect your IT resources, your PCs. This requires typically an enterprise IT firewall, right? Next, you should separate OT from IT. Following a defense in depth best practice, you should have a different brand of firewall here. Also, you should really have to realize that the job to be done is very different. The enterprise firewall needs to stop all traffic coming in, but it should also allow all traffic going out. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to use the web and cloud services at the office, right? You can't use Office 365 if you can't get out. This is very, very different in OT, where there's a need to be very restrictive about what you allow in both directions, as threats can come from both sides. Threats can come from visiting workers, they can come from third-party remote access, they can come from neighboring machines, they can come from insiders, they can come from the IT domain, they can come from anywhere. This is exactly why asset owners are really advised to isolate their critical machines, putting a wall around them and making them as self-sufficient as possible. This is really a strategy that provides protection, visibility, and control of the traffic and the production processes. Like I said in the beginning, ideally it should have been built into the network. You would want to have it on every port, on every device. But that is both expensive and difficult to control and manage in many cases. The next best thing is to isolate your machines, your groups of assets that belong together. And the IEC 62443 framework is really a big force that pushes change, but also makes things, more easy. It helps you guide and check off what you ought to do in order to get to a more secure architecture. And in short, the 3-3 framework, the 3-3 part of the framework guides towards a risk-based strategy where you make an analysis per machine or system that you have on what the impact of an incident to it will be. And thereafter, you can assign different sort of security levels towards the machine parts, assets that belong together. And you separate those in zones and you guard them in between with conduits. And a conduit is an enforcement point for traffic between the zones. Typically, of course, an industrial firewall.
But before we get into that, I want to thank theautomationschool.com for sponsoring this episode of the show. That's where you'll find all of my online courses on Allen Bradley and Siemens PLCs and HMIs. So if you know anybody who needs to get up to speed on those products, please mention theautomationschool.com to them. And now let's jump back into the show.
And when applying the 6244333, this is kind of a short abstract of what's needed, right? For the listeners, I'll explain it out loud that, this is the requirement 5.1, physical segmentation. It says that it's required to separate control systems from non-control systems, isolating safety control systems and separate machines with different security levels. And physical segmentation between these means that you have to put a conduit between the zones. This can be a firewall or a security gateway of sorts, depending on the needs. But they will require their own layer 2 infrastructure and then a layer 3 firewall to separate them as a conduit. In addition, requirement 5.2 prescribes zone boundaries. There needs to be enforcement points for the traffic between the zones and an enhancement of that deny by default policy, e.g. only specifically allow the traffic that you choose and must have to have the process work. So some of these requirements are security level 2. The need for physical segmentation is security level 2, and the deny by default is security level 2. If you would like to do security level 1, you can do logical segmentation, basically using VLANs, still using a firewall as a conduit between them, but utilizing the same layer 2 infrastructure. But segmentation according to 6244333 SL2 really requires firewalls as a conduit to separate zones and monitor and control the traffic in between. And generally, SL2 is seen as the low bar for implementing 62443 framework. So this kind of means that a lot of networks need to be reassessed and thought out about how much risk am I really taking? What should I split up in different zones in order to minimize my risk?
Yeah, I think I want to just go and just give an example of this deny by default, right, in this zoning, right? So, we've talked about zero trust a lot on the shows over the years. And, think of it this way, folks. If you have two separate machines, right, you really shouldn't be able to open up the web browser for the PLC on machine 1 from the network that you're on machine 2 of. Really, there's no reason to have that port, to have that web interface open everywhere on the plant floor, because that just means that everywhere on the plant floor is susceptible to being attacked. So a very simple way, for instance, if the two machines don't have any interlocks or controls, then they really shouldn't be able to message each other and share data, right? So I know there's some very long machines that will have multiple PLCs and they all have to communicate to each other. That's great. And I know you're going to have a supervisory system that's going to want to collect this data, as well as an engineering office where you want to access all your PLCs and program them. But that, I know you guys listening couldn't see the picture, but that kind of gives you an idea of what we were kind of visualizing in that last slide. And again, that deny by default or zero trust is so important to, it's like not giving somebody a master key to the whole plant. Why would you do that? The IT guy has a key to the IT closet. The PLC guy has a key to the engineering office where his laptop is, right? There's no reason to give everybody keys to everything. And that's kind of like just a way that I found useful to boil this down. But with that said, let me turn it back to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. So, the industrial security appliances, they are devices that enable several practical use cases meeting security needs. In the Anybus Defenders, they are available with several different licenses to cater for the several different use cases. So let's walk through that a little bit. The common industrial network security use cases are first and foremost still network address translation, right, or NAT. It's managing IP address conflicts and anyway enabling communications. But by itself, NAT is not a strong security use case. We have to realize that. But if you enable it by firewalls, advanced traffic filtering can be applied at the same time, satisfying by that deny by default requirements. It's an effort of making that configuration. Segmentation, of course, according to 6443, with traffic filtering on IP and port numbers of both source and destinations, and also filtering on MAC addresses. You can be very restrictive about who's allowed to talk to who with what protocols. And you can enable this with NAT mode, but you can also enable this if it's in routing mode, or even in a transparent bridge mode. So when you implement that, you do not even need to readdress your devices when implementing this in brownfield installations. It can be like a transparent filter in between your networks. You, of course, need to take care of your IT-OT separation. And oh my God, more often than not, this is not taken care of, right? Especially in the smaller factory enterprises. But it's really needed to separate it and create your demilitarized zones, your DMZs, for shared IT resources, right? It's incredibly important to isolate this, so what I call IT4OT systems. Those kind of systems that are really more IT, but they're still very critical for the production process to function. We also have access control solutions with deep packet inspection. So this would allow enforcing in the network rules on industrial protocols, including, for instance, Modbus and SIP, Ethernet IP. So, for instance, you can allow read access on a PLC from a specific network address and deny any write procedures only during operation hours. Can be a nice complex use case. And lastly, plant-to-plant communication. VPN technologies used within operational environments. So, for example, in a large or geographically distributed site, the Anybus Defender can be used to enable connectivity, but also providing this perimeter security on the site. IPsec, OpenVPN, but also the newer WireGuard technologies are supported in this technology. So let's have a little bit of a deeper look at the product lineup of what we actually recently launched. We have both small, medium, and large models, as well as a cybersecurity console for central management. There are 4 hardware models available, satisfying various connectivity requirements, right? From a compact model with essential use cases supporting 2 segments, to gigabit Ethernet models with 6 physical segments and many more logical ones supporting all use cases. So let's quickly walk through them one by one. First off, you have the Defender Compact 1004. This device has 10100 Ethernet interfaces. It has 2 segments and a built-in switch with 3 ports. It is ideal to isolate maybe small machines, enable NAT, and segmentation use cases. A simple packet filter between networks, even in transparent mode, is very quickly realizable with this device. Unique for this firewall is that it's managed with Windows software through USB locally, much like how you traditionally configure the PLC with a local management solution. And that gives an extra added security in the sense that you have to have physical access in order to change anything. The second is the Defender 402. These are more powerful devices with gigabit Ethernet. This one supports 2 physical segments, but many more logical segments because it has VLAN support. So you can run several machine lines with a 6243 SL1 on different VLAN networks and connect them together through this Defender. They are built for all type of use cases, including DPI and VPN. So the 402 is really an industrial grade appliance rated for IP50, so dust proof, mounted with DIN rail, and it's configurable via an easy but yet flexible web management interface or centrally via a secure connection via the central console software. A possible setup can look like this. You have a WAN port towards the northbound supervisory segment or the IT segments, and you have several logical segments on a switch supporting VLANs. The firewall is responsible for routing traffic between the VLANs, enabling conduit capabilities. This satisfies 6443 security level 1 requirements.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to jump in here and pay some bills. Thank you, first of all, for listening to this episode. And while today's vendor wasn't able to sponsor this episode, I still wanted to invest the time to bring it to you because I think you're like me. You like to learn about new products and technologies. So with all that said, I'd like to ask you to consider becoming a member for just $10 a month, either on YouTube or at theautomationblog.com. to help me offset the cost of producing these episodes each week. In exchange for your membership, you will receive member-only perks and ad-free editions of every unsponsored episode of this show. With that said, thanks again for tuning in this week, and now we'll return you to this week's episode.
A third
question on the last one?
Go ahead.
I noticed that there's a USB port and HDMI port, actually two USB ports it looks like, and an HDMI port. What are those for?
It's so common question. I have a lovely little setup there. I actually bought a nice little monitor to show what you can do with this. But they from the ground up, they are a computer. It's a Unix-based computer. It does have a command prompt. You can log into it via SSH if you enable that, but you can also log in through that through a console with a keyboard that you connect to the USB and a monitor to the HDMI. And this is needed if you want to recover on a unit that has that you've lost a password for instance.
Oh.
You cannot connect the HDMI after the device is in service. You have to put the HDMI in and then reboot the system. So you cannot just take it over, so to say. You have to really do this during a maintenance period. And then you get into a prompt where you could log in and do some resetting for the unit as such.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
But there are other interesting use cases with USB as well. It can be used for backups. Of course, you can download backup from the web interface as well. But a very interesting feature is that you can actually save the backup to the USB, take that USB to another unit, and boot that unit up with the USB key inside of it, and it will copy over the configuration. So if you are a machine builder and you want to have several of these devices with a fixed configuration running, then you can very easily make sort of a serial production line with exactly identical units configured. So nice. There are several applications that are nice. So the third device, 6004, is a gigabit Ethernet device also, but now with 4 physical segments, plus support for many more logical segments through VLANs as well, supporting all the use cases, of course. And this model is perfect for, this last model is perfect for segmenting a few zones with physical segmentation. Different layer 2 infrastructure is needed on each zone, and all traffic between the zones always goes through the Defender. So it's perfect to satisfy the 6443 security level 2 requirements. And last but not least, we have the 6024. That's with 4 copper gigabit Ethernet ports and an additional 2 SFP ports as well, supporting both fiber or copper. A total of 6 physical segments and many more logical ones. And both of these last 2 models, they support all the use cases. They are IP50 rated and they're DIN mountable. So the 6024 provides an extensive segmentation capabilities, really. Dual WAN is also possible if you want to configure that. So you can connect to several supervisory networks at the same time. it can have a combination of logical and physical segments that can be supported in one unit. And of course, it can be used to support networks where you do subnetting to separate different assets also. But don't get fooled. You must know that this does not enable protection. It's only for convenience. You know, different subnets connected in the same network is still the same zone. In larger installations with many different segments and many firewalls, it is, of course, very important to have the capability to centrally manage this. And the Anybus Defender cybersecurity console software is a centralized system management application that offers an easy-to-use and modern web user interface where groups of firewalls can be put into collections for quick deployment of rules that are common across several zones. And the software is compatible with the Defenders 4000 and above, so not with the smallest compact one. And it enables also monitoring operational and protective states of the network. It also handles backups centrally, and it provides firmware and extension packages depository locally on-prem. You could give the firewall access to the internet directly to always make sure that you have the latest information, but you can proxy that through this central console as well. It's a Windows software. It's installed on-prem, supervisory layer of the infrastructure, and we offer this in several different versions depending on how many defenders you want to manage with this. And the Defender 4000 and above, they come fully pre-configured with one of 3 licenses. So there are article numbers that includes the hardware and the license in one, and you get it out of the box and it works out of the box. It's either net firewall for, stateful firewall license for 6443 segmentation or those type of filtering use cases. Or if you go more advanced and you need DPI, you can get the DPI license for industrial protocol screening, asset access control, as well as virtual patching through intrusion protection system add-ons, etc. And finally, you have a Pro license as well that includes enhanced routing capabilities, like BGP routing support for dual internet connections, or support for high availability with 2 units, traffic shaping capabilities. It's pretty advanced stuff. Those that need it, they can choose the Pro license. And very important for OT, this license, they come pre-configured in the unit and they are perpetual. So there's no recurring renewal fee. In IT, firewalls are usually sold with subscriptions. If your subscription is not updated, your firewall stops working or stops working optimally. This is, of course, totally unacceptable in an OT environment. So we have chosen for a more traditional perpetual model that we think fits the core values of uptime much better. So these Anybus Defenders, they are engineered for OT. And besides the rugged form factor, this is also one of the features that shows this specifically. So the unit helps you identify what you are protecting. So it becomes much easier to read and adjust your security rules. So it supports various industrial security protocols to perform a scan of your network and identify what it finds and provide insights about the devices that it finds, like type of equipment, brand, software version, patch level, etc. So it does this, and it also gives you an accuracy score. So it tells you how it performed this and what kind of certainty it has this. And of course, this can be optionally enabled. Not everybody would like to have this enabled, but it's very, very powerful. And it includes support for these industrial protocols and uses them to do the discovery. So in the example, you can see here, for instance, that it finds a Rockwell automation device, and then it queries with Ethernet IP what the serial number is and what the revision number is and what sort of the type of device is. And it does the same with the Siemens, and it uses SNMP in the Profinet network to find out what data is available there. And for a Windows device, it will use Nmap, and it will get information about what's the OS actually on this device and what's the patch level that it reveals. In addition, we offer specific functionality to make advanced configurations a bit easier. Anybus Defender includes deep packet inspection capabilities that we talked about, and other files will likely support thousands of protocols in the DPI engine, right? But most of them are not relevant for OT at all. And the Anybus Defender instead supports a few highly relevant ones, and it does those very, very well. So the product includes a packet capture and a DPI analyzer capability so that the rules can be created for you. It's just for you to choose and select what to enable. In this way, more advanced access control capabilities can be enabled in the network. It's like disabling write commands on a PLC for those accessing through remote access, or only allowing upload of new PLC configurations during maintenance windows. So what you do is that you put on recording, you do your procedure, and then you can stop recording. And if you use that PCAP analysis, you will then get an analysis of every procedure done inside the operational industrial protocol. And you can either allow them all or deny specific ones, and then deny everything else and only allow what you captured. So it's really very granular and quite quick to actually use, which is good.
Yeah, PCAP technology is very, very powerful. Could you just say a word on that? Because I'm not sure a lot of people know what PCAP stands for or what that underlying technology does.
Yeah, a PCAP really does a raw streaming of what it sees on the network and parses that to a file that you can then read out in common open source tools like Wireshark. So you can actually really granular follow who sent the packet to what with what information exactly. So yeah, very powerful technology that can be used to really see what's happening deep inside the network, and with that then make it simple to design rules for, yeah, this I like and this I don't like.
Yeah, so if you were law enforcement, you were sitting outside a bank and you thought somebody was hacking the ATM, with those packet captures, you could see every bit of data, every bit of data going across the network, and you would be able to, like you said, use tools to see exactly what they did to hack that ATM and make it spit out all those dollar bills. But just real powerful technology. So the fact that they have this, right, and this capability so that you can actually run through the procedure you want to allow or deny, I think that's extremely powerful. Let me turn it back to you, Thomas.
Yeah, that's great. We'll just round up a little bit with summarizing what we've done, right? I mean, there are now new products available in the Anybus portfolio. You can find on the HMS homepage lots of information available about them. It's a complete new section about industrial security because it really needs its own attention, of course. And they are available through your regular HMS Anybus resellers. And a little bit about the product positioning, right? It's an analyst firm, API Research, they noted quite recently in their latest OT security market forecast report that network security and segmentation technologies will grow the most towards 2028. So I think that's very exciting, right? And answering to this trend, if we summarize what we do here, the Anybus Defender provides a tailored, robust, and reliable segmentation and protection use cases specifically designed to reduce the risk and the impact in critical industrial control systems and operational technology networks from evolving threats. So they are specifically designed for industrial environments, robust, with OT-specific relevant features, ease of use, and a license structure that works for critical infrastructure, right? So with the Anybus Defenders in your production environment, you will gain reliable, field-proven protection, visibility, and control. And that's really my conclusion, right? That we need to pivot now. The protection must become a priority. Segmentation is really key to minimize the impact and reduce the risk. So understand that a cyber incident in your OT environment, it will happen. It's better to be prepared, right? And secondly, OT is different than IT. Maybe the IT vendors will not say that and see that, but it is. So you need to respect it. The values are different, the technologies are different. You require fit for purpose proven solutions. And the 62443 segmentation framework is a very good guide. Don't get scared off about it. Use the pieces of it that make sense for you. Look at DPI use cases to really make granular protection strategies. And lastly, the market is pushed forward by threats. We read about them more and more every day, but also by regulations and by standardization. And feel confident that a range of products is available. Help is there to get. Start protecting now. Don't be a victim. Minimize the impact on breach and defend your uptime. That's really our message.
I appreciate you coming on. It looks like a great line. I love for those listening, there were a lot of charts with all the different features and functions. So if you want to know more, of course, and you're listening, go back and watch it. Of course, all the products are on their website, like Thomas said. You can see Thomas on LinkedIn. You can see his email here. Or you can always talk to your local Anybus distributor or source where you get the products from. But it's good to see such a leader in the industry with bridging and networking also jump into the security area with a full breadth of products, from the single machine all the way up to, much larger systems. And a lot of the things I saw there, like the centralized software and a lot of the different things you touched on, you can tell are so important to the OT side. So you can definitely tell you guys did your research, especially with the OEMs being able to clone the products real easily and so on. So Thomas, I just thank you for coming on the show. I hope we can get you back on, in a few months to talk about whatever else is new at the time. But really appreciate you taking time and reacting so quickly to my request to learn more about this. And I know the audience and I all appreciate you coming on. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Security is super important for HMS. This is the start of a journey that really already started many years ago. We have, as all vendors, big responsibility to build secure devices by themselves. And now we build also security devices. We will continue that journey to help it make it easier and easier to protect your uptime. That's really our mission.
All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm good. I want to
All
wish
right.
everybody a great weekend, or if you're listening to the week, a good day. Stay safe.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And before I get into my standard outro, I want to kind of bring you up on current events here. So first of all, thank you, members. This episode and next week's episode are not sponsored, so you guys get exclusive access to the video editions. That said, I also want to thank all our audio listeners across the world. You guys are just great. Thank you for tuning in every week. Now, what's coming up? So next week, we have our final episode of the year. We have another major vendor coming on to talk tech on industrial automation products. I really enjoyed the show. I hope you guys will too. After next week, I'm on vacation for a week. You guys probably heard I'm going to go visit my new grandson down in Florida. And then when I come back, I'm not going to jump right back into the podcast like I typically do every year. I'm going to take a little time off because I want to think about doing things differently for 2025. Now, one of the things I really want to change is I want to outsource the editing of this show. I think this show, unlike other things I do, can be edited by somebody else. And look, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I love sitting down with these vendors and talking about new products and understanding their products and how they work. But it's a real drag, especially after 12 years and 230 episodes. It is a really drag on my week and on my soul, editing these week after week after week. I think after 12 years, I need to outsource that. And of course, it's going to cost money. And so that'll be for the sponsored episodes. Now, for the unsponsored episodes, I'm struggling with paying myself to sit down and record those episodes during the day when I could be doing things that could generate revenue for the company. You may not know this, but each podcast episode that is unsponsored generates about $1 or $2 in revenue. So this is basically zero revenue, right? And so I've had several of these vendors who've came on and did not sponsor the episode tell me that they sold, thousands of dollars worth of products after coming on. So I'm going to move the unsponsored episodes to after hours. Now, some of you may be saying, why even do them? Well, there are some vendors I really want to get updates from, but they're really cheap when it comes to giving their product managers, $500 to get on a podcast. So I think the only way I'm going to be able to get them on, at least in the near term, is to do it for free. But I'm going to just do it after hours. I'm not going to pay myself to give free press to a vendor because that just means I'll have more debt, which nobody wants, right? So in any case, that's going to be a change too. Now, I may call those episodes the Automation Podcast After Hours, so you know that I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed. I'm not going to be as serious, and that it's a free episode. Nobody's paying for. I'm just volunteering to record it. Now maybe someday we'll have enough members to be able to produce shows just for the membership. Right now, the membership program's like just over 6 months old, and it doesn't bring in enough revenue to even pay for a single episode. But hopefully that'll change in the future. I definitely want to make the membership program something that's so valuable that people don't mind giving up one coffee a week to be part of it. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. In any case, I do want to thank Thomas from Anybus for coming on the show. And I don't think it's too early to wish you all a very happy holiday. I'm celebrating Christmas, so Merry Christmas to those out there celebrating Christmas. But whatever you're celebrating, I want to wish you a very happy holiday. And I also want to wish you good health and happiness, not only for the end of this year, but for all of 2025. And with that said, guys, I hope you have an awesome week. We'll see you back here next week. And until next time, my friends, peace.